What if I told you that one single hit, one brutal, violent, jaw-dropping moment during a pre-draft workout just changed the entire direction of the 2026 NFL Draft, blew up the Cleveland Browns organization from the inside, and may have just cost one of the most powerful franchises in football their last chance at redemption? Because on March 18th, 2026, that is exactly what happened. And if you are not watching this right now, you are already behind. So stay locked in, because this story goes deeper than you think. Shedeur Sanders walked into that Browns facility as the most talked-about quarterback prospect in years, son of Deion Sanders, the man who turned Colorado into a national sensation, the kid who faced pressure his entire life and never once backed down. A quarterback who threw for over 4,000 yards in college, who took hits behind one of the worst defensive lines in college football and still stood up every single time, who proved year after year that he was not just riding his father's name, but actually earning everything on his own. And the entire NFL world was watching to see which franchise would be smart enough to grab him before someone else did. And the Cleveland Browns, a team drowning in years of failure, a team that burned their future on Deshaun Watson and paid the price for it, a team whose fans have been patient for so long that patience itself feels like a joke. These Browns had a chance, a real, legitimate chance to change their story. And then, someone on that field hit Shedeur Sanders so hard that the entire stadium went silent. And that silence, that one moment of silence, cracked open a drama so intense that it is still shaking the league right now. Nobody in that facility was expecting what happened next. Shedeur did not go down and stay down. He did not walk off. He did not look at the sideline with fear in his eyes. Instead, he got up, fixed his helmet, and walked straight back to the line of scrimmage like nothing happened. And that right there told you everything you need to know about who this young man is and what he is made of.
But the real question that nobody was asking out loud was whether that hit was accidental or whether there was something more calculated going on inside the Browns organization, because sources close to the situation, and I want to be clear, these are unconfirmed at this point, began suggesting that certain people within the Browns facility wanted to see how Shedeur would respond under extreme physical pressure before the draft, a kind of unofficial stress test, a brutal way to decide whether this quarterback has the mentality to survive an NFL season. And if that is true, then it raises a question that should make every NFL fan uncomfortable. Is it acceptable to potentially injure a top draft prospect just to satisfy your own front office curiosity, especially when that prospect has done nothing but prove himself over and over again at the college level? Now let us talk about the Simmons connection, because this is where the story gets even more layered and complex. And the reason Simmons matters here is because when his name entered the conversation surrounding this hit, suddenly the entire narrative shifted from a simple workout incident to something that felt much more personal, much more political, much more like the kind of internal Browns dysfunction that has plagued this franchise for years and years. And if you have followed Cleveland football at all over the last decade, you know exactly what that dysfunction looks like. It looks like poor decisions made behind closed doors. It looks like a coaching staff and a front office that are never fully on the same page. It looks like a franchise that is always one mistake away from burning everything down. And now here they are again, standing at a crossroads where they have the opportunity to draft the most dynamic young quarterback available, and instead of making the smart move, they are generating controversy and creating headlines that no team wants to see weeks before the most important night of the football calendar. And the Deion Sanders factor here cannot be ignored or understated, because when you draft Shedeur Sanders, you are not just drafting a quarterback, you are entering into a relationship with one of the most media-savvy, most outspoken, most powerful personalities in all of American sports, a man who built his entire second act around his sons, and who will absolutely hold franchises accountable if he feels his son is being disrespected or set up to fail.
And the Browns had to know this walking in. They had to know that every single thing they did with Shedeur during this pre-draft process would be watched, analyzed, and discussed. So the question becomes, did they handle this situation with the professionalism and respect that a top prospect deserves, or did they let internal politics and old habits take over and create a mess that is now playing out in real time for the entire football world to see? Social media exploded the moment footage and accounts of this hit started circulating. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, every platform lit up with takes from every direction. Fans defending Shedeur and calling for the Browns to be held accountable, and analysts split down the middle between those who said this is just football and those who said this crossed the line. And the Browns organization responded to all of it with complete silence. No statement, no press conference, no acknowledgement, just silence. And that silence is deafening because when a franchise says nothing, it usually means they're either embarrassed, calculating, or both. And right now, with the draft approaching and every team's board being finalized, that silence is doing serious damage to Cleveland's reputation as a destination for top talent. Because players talk, agents talk, families talk, and if word spreads that the Browns are the kind of organization that treats prospects this way, then suddenly your ability to attract free agents and future draft picks gets compromised in ways that go far beyond this one moment. Let us map out what actually happens from here, because this drama is nowhere close to being over. If the Browns use their draft capital to select Shedeur Sanders, then the pressure that lands on that franchise is unlike anything they have experienced in recent memory. Because you are not just handing a young quarterback the keys, you are putting him in a city that is desperate, behind an offensive line that needs work, and an organization that just generated negative headlines about how they treated him before he even put on the jersey. And Deion Sanders will be watching every snap, every press conference, every coaching decision. And if things go sideways even slightly, the media storm that follows will be historic.
But on the flip side, if Shedeur succeeds, and based on everything he has shown us there is every reason to believe he can, then Cleveland becomes relevant again in a way they have not been in decades, and this entire pre-draft controversy becomes nothing more than a footnote in a redemption story that writes itself. But there is another scenario that nobody wants to talk about openly. What if Shedeur and his camp decide that Cleveland is simply not the right situation? What if the Sanders family looks at this hit, looks at this silence, looks at this dysfunction, and decides that their guy deserves better than walking into a broken organization that already showed him disrespect before day one? Because that is absolutely within their rights, and it is a conversation that is almost certainly happening right now in private. And if Shedeur comes off the board and lands somewhere else, whether through a trade, a surprise pick, or a different team jumping up, then the Browns will have to live with the reality that they had their franchise quarterback in their building. They let the situation get out of hand, and they watched him walk out the door and into another team's future. Now, think about what this moment actually means for Shedeur Sanders personally, not just as a football player, but as a human being who has spent his entire life being scrutinized, criticized, and doubted in ways that most people will never experience. Because from the very first day he stepped onto a college football field, people questioned whether he was only there because of his father, whether Deion was pulling strings behind the scenes to make his son look better than he actually was, whether the Colorado system was inflating his numbers and hiding his weaknesses. And Shedeur answered every single one of those questions the same way, by playing football, by putting up numbers, by leading his team, by taking hits and coming back. And now here he is at the doorstep of the NFL, at the moment every kid dreams about from the time they first pick up a football. And instead of being celebrated and welcomed the way a top prospect deserves to be, he is walking into a facility where someone lays him out in a workout and the organization says nothing about it. And you have to ask yourself, does this young man deserve that? Does anybody deserve that? And the answer is obviously no. But the NFL has never been a league that concerns itself too deeply with fairness. It has always been a league that rewards those who survive, who push through, who refuse to let the system break them. And based on everything Shedeur Sanders has shown the world up to this point, he is absolutely that kind of person. Consider also what Deion Sanders himself must be feeling right now, because this man gave up comfort, gave up the easy life, gave up everything to rebuild his coaching career, specifically so he could be in a position to guide his sons into the NFL on the best possible terms. He took the Jackson State job when people laughed at him. He took the Colorado job when people said it could not be done.
He turned both programs around through sheer force of will and personality and genuine football knowledge, and he did all of it with one eye always on the bigger picture, which was making sure that when Shedeur and Shiloh reached the NFL, they would be ready, they would be respected, and they would have every possible advantage going into the most competitive environment in professional sports. And now, here is Shedeur getting laid out in a pre-draft workout, and the organization responsible is saying nothing about it. And if you think Deion Sanders is going to sit quietly and let that slide without consequence, then you have not been paying attention to who this man is and how he operates. Because primetime has never been quiet a day in his life, and he is not about to start now when his son's future is on the line. What we also need to understand is the historical context here. Cleveland has been trying to find a franchise quarterback for so long that the search itself has become part of the city's identity. And the list of quarterbacks who have come through Cleveland and failed or been failed by the organization is long and painful and well documented. And each time a new name arrives, there is this burst of hope, this feeling that maybe this time it will be different. Maybe this is the one who finally turns it around. And then something happens, an injury, a bad coaching hire, a front office miscalculation, a locker room problem, and the hope deflates again, and Cleveland goes back to the drawing board. And Shedeur Sanders represented something genuinely different this time, because he is not just a quarterback, he is a symbol. He is the son of a legend. He is the product of a story that the entire country has been following for years. And if Cleveland could land him and develop him and build around him, then they would not just be getting a quarterback, they would be getting a narrative, a story that fans could invest in emotionally in a way that goes beyond wins and losses. And that kind of emotional investment is exactly what a franchise like Cleveland desperately needs right now. But narratives can also become burdens, and that is the other side of the Shedeur Sanders coin that every team considering drafting him has to reckon with.
Because the same qualities that make his story compelling, the famous father, the media attention, the expectations built up over years of coverage, are also the qualities that can crush a young quarterback before he ever fully develops. Because the NFL is unforgiving, and development takes time. And even great quarterbacks need a grace period where they're allowed to make mistakes and learn without every single error being dissected on national television. And Shedeur Sanders is simply never going to get that grace period. Not with who he is, not with who his father is, not with the way the media ecosystem works in 2026, where every incompletion becomes a trending topic and every interception becomes a referendum on whether the entire draft class evaluation was wrong. And yet, and this is the part that keeps bringing me back to Shedeur's side of this story, the young man himself seems completely unbothered by all of it. He has grown up in a spotlight. He has been in front of cameras since he was a teenager. He has fielded criticism and doubt and skepticism for his entire football life, and every single time he has responded the same way, by going out and performing, by letting his play speak louder than any take or any narrative or any hit in a workout ever could. And that mental toughness, that absolute refusal to let outside noise change who he is and how he plays, might be the most important quality he brings to whatever NFL team gets him. Because quarterbacks who cannot handle pressure, not physical pressure, but mental pressure, the weight of expectations, the noise of a market, the demands of a fan base, those quarterbacks wash out of this league fast, and everything about Shedeur Sanders suggests he is built differently in that regard. The bottom line as we sit here on March 18th, 2026, is that this story is unresolved. The drama is real, the stakes are enormous, and the next few weeks are going to be must-watch television for anyone who cares about football, about family legacies, about organizational culture, about the way the NFL evaluates and treats its future stars. And I want you to be here for all of it. So hit that subscribe button right now.
Because the moment something breaks, and something is going to break, I'm going to be right here giving you the full breakdown with context and analysis that you are not going to find anywhere else. And if you want to tell me in the comments right now what you think is going to happen, does Shedeur end up in Cleveland? Does he go somewhere else? Does this whole situation blow up even further before draft night? Drop it below, because I read every single comment, and your take matters to this conversation. And until the next video, stay locked in, stay informed, and never let anyone tell you that football is just a game, because it has never been just a game. It is people's lives, it is family, it is legacy, and it is the most compelling drama playing out in American sports right now.